Okay, so as you may know, so the Fair Institute is a nonprofit expert organization whose mission is really to advance the profession of risk management. Since we're at RSA, yes, it's about advancing the cyber risk profession, but also operational risk and many other forms of risk, and FAIR is really applicable to all these areas. And what I'm amazed, my encounter with Jack and the FAIR model, for me, changed my life, changed the way I think, and ask myself, how many organizations do that to you? Some of them give you a little few tools, a few tricks in there, but how many organizations have the power to change the way you think about how you do your day job, how you look at the world, how you assess the significance of events? That's what the FAIR Institute and the FAIR model really do. And so I really encourage you to learn more. This is an open event. There's many more events we hold throughout the year. So we encourage you to be members. Membership is free. And I want to tell you a little bit about developments, that we had in the past year. The Institute has grown, especially for those who are old-timers. It has grown dramatically. It is governed by a board of, I think, very talented people, a mixture of CISO in large companies, people and experts in academia, former head of risk at Federal Reserve. And so this is a basically acts as a steering committee for the FAIR Institute, as helps drive the agenda, and I think bring a big contribution to it. But what am I most impressed with is the progress in engagement in the industry. Not long ago, just 2 years ago, I was still walking around the alleys with the Jack Jones, and he still looked like the prophet in the desert. Today is Ash Wednesday, so he would say, like, repent, don't use those, red, yellow, greens and high, medium, zone anymore. And it's like, they don't get it. The market doesn't get it. And happy to say 2 years later, huge difference it make. I mean, even the discourse at the FAIR Institute has changed from, what is fair? What can I use it for? And the discussion is, how can I adopt it in my enterprise? And how can I engage my board, my executives, my teams to use it? In how many ways can I do it? And the interest has been accelerating. A year ago, we were celebrating 2,000 members, and we started in 2016. This year, we are at the cusp of reaching 5,000 members by the end of March. Huge progress. In the last year, we've seen chapters emerge in Sydney, in Melbourne, Cape Town, Abu Dhabi, Paris, and London, Pittsburgh, Dallas. It's happening. And some of these chapters, and when I think about some chapters, the membership they have in London has 200 FAIR members. Potential to change really an industry in those localities. And these people are meeting together almost like revolutionaries to scheme about, tell me how you're doing it. Tell me how you're doing it. Make me better. And what I really appreciate is the camaraderie here. Because there's no big arbiter here who decides the rules of the game. You guys, I see it's a grassroots movement where people meet locally and really help one another in a selfless way. I see competitors exchanging tips at a table. I already saw here people in the same industry, how you do it. This is how I do it, okay. And we are elevating the profession together. For me, that's very humbling. It's rare to see an industry where it's really a grassroots effort in such a way. Other numbers, 8 of the top Fortune companies, of top 10 Fortune companies, have adopted FAIR in some fashion. It's 75% of the Fortune 50. It's 30% of the Fortune 1000. 4 more last week. We believe the number is going to be close to 50% by the end of the year. These are big numbers. What's also we're seeing is more universities adopting courses on FAIR because they see the need for people graduating in cybersecurity to elevate their management skills so they can justify the value of their actions. And on the other side, there is MBA courses or econ courses where they're going to teach them how to manage IT. How to manage, the economics of security, of IT risk. And so we've seen both trends happening, and so big universities are offering courses on FAIR. So the next generation of leaders is starting to learn what we believe is a better way than traditional risk management. I want to share now a personal story. When I say this is going places, last year, I was reflecting the other day with Luke. We were 5 times at the White House last year, and we trained OMB on FAIR. We were 4 times in Congress. And congressmen telling us, like, can you help us because we're giving all this money to Homeland Security, taking out these reports with red, yellow, green, we're still getting breached. Are we getting anything in return? Can you help us change that discussion? This is top-line agenda of the Cybersecurity Caucus. We tried this compliance approach, but isn't technology changing so fast you cannot keep up with it? Shouldn't we more have a risk-based approach to things, and can you help us think? And so Congress asking us for advice. When I say us, it's us representing you, all of you. Same happened, you know, NIST will start referencing FAIR this year as part of the standard. Big development. We've been approached by the cyber authority in the UK, the Israelis, all saying, can you teach us a better way to assess and manage risk? And we're like, I cannot believe this is happening. And last night, I was at one of these events here in San Francisco, and this was SC Magazine, was celebrating 30 years. And they were also recognizing leaders in the industry, typically software company with the coolest product, with the best product, et cetera. But they said this year we did something special. We have this committee of 35 industry leaders, and we want to recognize people who made a difference in the last 30 years, organizations and people. So they got some CISOs, you know, luminaries in the last 30 years, companies that really made the mark. And at some point, and I was looking at this now, 30 years, oh my God, I don't even remember, you know, where I was 30 years ago. And they come up with this slide that says, most important industry organization over the last 30 years. You probably can start guessing where this is going. And they basically click on the slide, and I see FAIR Institute on the top of organization that I've known for decades, like ISACA. You probably know the SIG, you know, their shared assessments. And I will look at this like, I cannot believe this is happening. And so, which means the 35 people voted, you know, big shot CISOs, industry leaders, leading analysts in the industry are recognizing the FAIR Institute as a think tank where people are changing their way of working for the better in a fundamental way. So, and this is also a kudos to all of you, because we're building this together. It's not, you know, me and Luke scheming on the side that can do this. And so it's really the collective body of knowledge that is growing very fast. And I've seen in the discussions, you know, what we're doing this year is so much better than we're doing last year in terms of internal practices. And so let's continue. So I'm very grateful for all your contribution. FAIR, and what I want to talk about now is, it really has the capacity to change the discussion. And I stole here a slide from a presentation that for my day job, a company at RiskLens we did for organization. We did a FAIR analysis. This picture was basically the exemplification of how they changed the discussion about risk in that organization. And I'm going to just use this example. Sounds like a simple example. This was an organization where they don't have a risk program. They were arm wrestling with the CFO all the time about how much money they needed to secure their organizations. And here they wanted to spend money on securing personal identifiable information for their brokerage accounts holders, and, but didn't know how to justify the spend. And so they engaged on our assessment using FAIR, and they came up with a baseline assessment where they showed the exposure on those records with the current controls, given the threats they're facing. And they wanted to show the risk reduction by implementing, but you can probably not read it very well at the back. This says future state tokenization and by how much risk could be reduced. But in the process, they also found out is like, wait a minute, many of our records are stale. We have unused account, old customers. And we have a lot of liability on accounts we're not using because it's personal information. If we get breached, we are liable for those things. And suddenly I had discussions like, well, the business says it's practical to have lots of data. We can always mine it, come up with reports. If the customer comes back, it's easier, et cetera. But now the discussion changes like, is it worth the risk? Is it worth the liability? So the CEO was part of the discussion, the business owner. And now the security organization and the risk organization having discussed with the business as an enabler. You can keep the data, but you need to sign off on that extra liability that we have if you keep that data. Discussion became explicit. It became a trade-off. in terms of explaining how much risk we can reduce if we implement tokenization, the ROI given the investment became very clear. And what it enables really the business to be a protagonist. For the first time, the business and organization says, now I know what you guys do. Thank you for giving me the options. We need to make a business decision now. This analysis changed the way they think about their organization, okay? And now they want to implement a program. And so this is what's happening out there. I just want to give you a small example of when we say we changes the discussion, these things are happening. And the other thing we've seen in the last year is a big change in how companies do analysis. You think about risk assessments, a few analyses done a few times a year for regulators and the boards to keep them happy, to show them that we know what our top risks are. But we've seen a lot of organizations that became fair shops doing analysis on a daily basis. What's the significance of this audit finding? We have this project to move to the cloud and the board is scared about moving to the cloud. Let us show them it's not such a big deal. We want to hire these 2 people to improve patching. Is it worth the ROI? Your organization will have faced those decisions every day. And now there are the keys to basically unlock the understanding of what these decisions entail and and really enable informed decisions like never before. So that's what's happening in the industry. We turned this from I would say, a reporting that was periodic, episodic, to a day-to-day decision-making discipline. That's a major change in the industry. We really changed the way our companies operate. And so you are at the center of this. And so this leads me to warming you up for the actually main item in the agenda. Last year, to show you also the progress in the discourse, Jack was on stage, the author of FAIR, talking about the stages of FAIR adoption. What are the many ways in which companies can adopt FAIR? And the summary of that presentation, by the way, is in that white paper that is on RiskLens's table at the front. If you don't have it, otherwise you can download it from the, here it is. Omar from Highmark is showing it. Very good guide to show you how you can have a staged, say, progression in terms of adopting FAIR. But what we want to do this year is like, instead of hearing the same story again, is like, okay, let's talk from some companies that actually try to put that in practice and learn about the good and the bad and maybe the advice they have in terms of adopting FAIR in their organizations. So we can learn from one another and really make this camaraderie and this learning from one another in practice. So with that, I'm going to invite Luke back so he can introduce our next speakers. Thank you all.